Nice. Try to set this up on my phone, but we're live. And I didn't know what to name this one. It's kind of a reflection of past little while and this day. So we will get into quite a topic nonetheless, but the silence of this title reflects a lot. So as usual, even though it has been a little bit of time, say hello in the comments. If you're here, we're gonna just dive right into it. It's not gonna be too long of an experience tonight, but nonetheless, I had a very clear message of transmission that wanted to come forward. But been in quite a funny mood today, like most days. I mean, I'm watching comedy skits or things of this nature in the midst of writing. And, in the essence of tonight, as I mentioned, without having really a title, a clear title for what I felt like I wanted to share, I feel it's just reflective of the energy and the mood of this time. So I'm just going to say hello to everyone as you're coming in. Hey, Lily, Yves, Melissa, all of you. I hope you're enjoying your experience of life at this time. And the only real intention for coming on tonight was to, in a sense, check in. It's been a little while since I've done consistent sessions, online. Obviously, a lot of writing has been coming forth, but at the same time, not so much. And I was going to explore a little bit of that. I get a lot of, questions when I meet people, which I don't see too many people often. But this past week, I was connected with quite a number of people in the physical, as there was certain things going on and all that. And people are obviously asking me, how are you? What are you doing? What are you up to? And like all of these types of questions. And of course, I mean, I get that online and things like this, and people starting conversations. And I rarely have that much to say, when it comes to these questions of experience. How am I doing? What am I doing? Obviously, people ask me what my daily routine is and things of this nature. But once again, I sometimes I just laugh when I get asked these questions because, my experience of day to day was very reflective actually in a session I was watching by another teacher that I just stumbled upon. And he was speaking to the essence of what it means to live in a natural state, or what does it mean to come back and live from the natural essence of ourselves. And he was speaking to the idea that in a certain sense, experience is not as much of an importance because, the realization of our natural essence is the realization in truth that we are the source of our experience. We are the source of all. And we are connected to that unified source, and which is connected to all things. And so from the vantage point of this, nothing really matters. Nothing truly matters at all. There's a certain balancing and neutrality that has arisen where the highs and the lows have equalized. What is high and what is low almost in a sense becomes the same. And he was just exploring the explanation of this experience very beautifully that I was quite resonant with, because very much about the nature of even these times we're facing, where they are bringing up a lot of different things for varying different people. It's yet another arising experience, like any time in our life where we may have thought something was going to happen. Maybe something that was going to happen was the ultimate bliss that we were looking for. It was the promised land. We thought that something was going to change us forever. Some magical situation. That could be someone you were going to meet, or some opportunity, or some situation, or some decision. We have these types of experiences, and then of course, on the opposite end, we have experiences where someone may have been. We may have experienced such fear. We thought everything is going to end, all is coming to a close, or we've made the ultimate mistake, or, something of this nature, where, of course, to the degree in which we've looked for the savior in some next moment, we naturally may be seeking, on the other end, the devil or something to blame for the catastrophe of our life, if you will. And this, in a sense, runs out for aeons. It's run out for aeons, and we're collectively facing a time where now all of that is having to be equalized. We're bringing this to the surface to see that, well, maybe our lives were going very well, and then all of a sudden, a quarantine hits, and all of a sudden your life now is seemingly taken away from you, and now things are not going so well. So we have to question, well, how well was our life really going before everything was taken away? And maybe even vice versa, right? If everything was going terribly and then all of a sudden some moment changed it all, well, then we have to question, how bad was it really if just in a moment all of a sudden everything can change? And what I'm alluding to here is that forever, as long as we're seeking out high and low experiences of changing things, experiences that are going to bring us more bliss or less bliss, more this, more less that, less this, more that. We're just, in the hamster wheel. And so, this in a sense plays out as long as we're in a body. I'm part of this. Sometimes I want to go eat something, or sometimes I want to go and watch something funny to entertain or whatever. But, naturally as I've come, along where I've come on the path, and we're all on this journey together, there's a certain neutrality within it all. There's a certain clarity that is the only reason why I come on and share, because I have a lot and very little to say these days because it's all the same. And so when we come back to the knowing that nothing truly matters, then we can actually live for once. We can live in the play, we can live in the needs of others, we can live in the needs of the moment, we can live in service to what is naturally calling us, what is naturally required in the moment. And this is the ultimate gift of freedom. This is what true freedom will be experienced as we continue to taste this fruit, where we'll see that whatever is a part of our natural path, whatever is a part of our natural trajectory, meaning, something we don't really need to go too far off the trail to experience, It is general, and that's not just energetically, that's also physically, that's on every level. When we feel like we're reaching, or we feel like we're running towards something, running away from something else, endlessly this is creating suffering. So, the practice always comes back to the same thing, as I constantly reiterate, how do we tune in and feel into what are we attaching ourselves to overly, or what are we resisting and pushing away? And it's very quick that we can usually find these things. And it's an ongoing, refined practice. It's what I teach in all my one-on-ones lately. It's, what I've been doing for years now, but, the core of the method of neutralization, which is in essence energy healing, it's emotional embodiment, it's awakening, it's self-inquiry, it's true meditation. It's all the same practice. It's the practice of the essential way to our nature, which is to see what is true. Right? And in other words, what is true is what is known. What do I know for certain? What can I put all my eggs in as something that is constant and unchanging? What is for the long term going to provide me the fulfillment? Not just the short-term hits, but what for the long term is going to provide me for fulfillment. This is truth. And in essence, this is love. But it's a redefining of the love in which we may have come to know, what we think it is, what we define it as, and all of the above. And I was just out in the park on the swing set with the dog, and Reina, my ex-fiance I'm staying with right now, we're great friends. And we were on the swing set, and the topic of dirt came up. And it occurred to me, how much our society will change when the common perception is that dirt is not dirty. That dirt is actually, in fact, where everything has come from, including these bodies. When you look out into a forest, you look into the marketplace of the foods we eat, we look into everything that's really created, in essence, has come from the earth, including these bodies, which are just, in a sense, loans from the earth. We have loaned this body, we have accumulated this body from the dirt and the minerals and all the vitamins that come from the earth and all the other elements. But the earth is that foundation. So, our definitions within the mind that categorize certain things as certain things, like dirt is dirty and we should wash ourselves from dirt and all that. It's such an illusion. And we're in a time where immunity and boosting our immune system is a topic. And in old African cultures or various other Aboriginal tribes, many times babies would be bathed in dirt or in various herbs that were soaked for a very long time in water, so that and it looks like very dirty water to the common Western mind. But they would bathe these babies in that to boost the immunity of the babies, as they're getting all the minerals and the vitamins. And there's other practices of being buried in dirt for 3-4 hours, like a sweat lodge and things like that, where you're taking in the minerals of the earth. And I mean, of course, we need to get good quality earth and dirt, and there's not so much of that in the Western world, let alone the whole world at this point, which is unfortunate, but that'll come back. But at least what I'm pointing at is that in the dirt is where we ultimately will find the greatest of joy. And it's in this equalization of mind, which means as we are perceiving the dirt of our experience being and holding the most vital of our lessons and experiences and love, we will naturally find our way. We will find our way to a resting place of ease and contentment, no matter what the external world is looking like. Because the truth of returning to your natural essence of peace, of love, of blissfulness, which is all interchangeable in their words, and it's not so much an experience rather than a knowing. This transforms all of one's experience paradoxically. It really leaves one in a place of really not caring what's this or what's that, or where one's going this way or that way, or if something's going to happen in this way or that way. It's a true surrender. It's a surrender and an untying of the knot of fear within the gut, within the sacral, within the nervous system, within the body, within the astral body, energy, all of it. It's an untying of the knot that holds all of the identification, and which ultimately is the source of fear. The ego is identification with what is false. It is not the personality and the human experience. That's not what the ego is. The ego is that knot. And so when we untie this knot by seeking truth, first and foremost, we naturally come to a place of this resting peace and contentment and blissfulness and love, the true love that we've been seeking within everything that we looked for, And this rests one naturally in a place where you can do nothing. You can do nothing all day if you like. You can do nothing for as long as you want. Because truly, naturally, you will feel the essence of yourself totally and completely. And this is all we're truly seeking. And now this will manifest for each of us in very different ways. Some of us will truly just sit around and do nothing. And some of us won't. And the funniest part about when I said that, half of you dropped off the call. So we need to look at that for a moment. How frightening is it to hear on one's personal development and spiritual quest and journey of seeking that to do nothing is all that really has to be done. To rest in a place of observance. To truly see. So many are just caught up in doing so often that this is the ultimate fear. And as I mentioned, doing nothing doesn't necessarily mean physically you're stable, silent, motionless. This is not at all what it's speaking to. It's like silence. To tune to the essence of silence does not mean the mind is just quiet. It does not mean you're not speaking. It does not mean you're not acting. It means there's a realization of the true essence that is stable and constant. Right? It's a realization of the true essence of non-doing, of nothingness, of beyond nothingness. It's beyond fullness and nothingness. It doesn't have a form. It doesn't have a name. So, at any point on the journey where we feel that there's a resistance to any teaching or any particular way of practicing, we're not to force it, but we're to explore, why is that uncomfortable? Why does that arise? And in a time where it seems like people need to be doing so much, even when we're in quarantine, it seems like, we got to do more spiritual practice. You got to awaken faster. You got to get your stuff in order. You got to prepare for the apocalypse or the heavens. We got to create the new earth. All these things, it's like, it becomes just more of a hamster wheel, right? These things will be done. All of these things are going to happen. And we're going to be fully involved in it. Remember, to realize the nature that nothing truly matters, it brings such an engagement into life like you've never explored ever before. It's the deepest depth of involvement we could ever experience. Right? The beautiful term I always come back to in the principle is engaged detachment. Detachment in essence is already engaged, but to bring the engaged detachment term at least helps the Western mind, focus on what it really is, where we are living within the world but not of it. We are existing within experience, we're existing within the needs of our surroundings, of our loved ones, of what's important, but yet we're not involved in any sort of real attachment or purpose within any of that. The purpose is already being lived. We don't need to add our own purpose into it, The highest intention would be to be intentionless, to return to an intentionless space so you can surrender to what is truly required, not what you're bringing with the filters and various things that you feel like are important. This is in essence what we are coming to, with the teachings of human design. Human design is a beautiful tool because it helps us accept who we are, not who we want to be. Right? Accepting who we are, not who we want to be. That's the beauty of what human design can support us in. At any point in which we're coming in with, and of course everyone's going to come into human design or astrology or any teaching with who they want to become and what this teaching can or cannot do to support who they want to become. But just like everything that's happened here, how this face has grown, this hair has grown, I mean, sure, I chose to grow up my hair, but the hair has a certain color to it, it has a certain quality. I can take care of this body and realign with nature so that it expresses itself in its highest form. My nose used to be way bigger and swollen because I was in fighting all the time. I had like a lot of acne in my face because I used to eat poorly all the time. My face just looked angry because I was angry. I was holding all this anger. But now, I mean, I'm not a perfect human, but it's so much better. And this is aligning back to the natural way. It's not adding a bunch of things and all of this. If anything, it's taking things away. So by taking things away, again, doing less and less and less, we express the highest of our nature. I was climbing in a tree of mine. I posted this picture at my parents' house. And it's a tree my grandfather and I had planted with the rest of the family. And this tree started at about 4 feet. And now I'd say it's almost as tall as the house. It's maybe about 25, 30 feet. Tall and almost exactly that wide. It's a gigantic tree. It's been about 20 years or more. Or no, a bit less. Maybe 18 years, 19 years. And what had to be done from this tree other than to just be given a good environment of sun and water? This is it. And us just not go and hit the tree or crack it or break it. The tree just grows and it's the most magnificent, complex thing. And of course, its roots are just as far down into the earth as they are high, and the roots are the same thing. What makes the branches is the same thing that makes the roots. The only reason they look different is because one is soaked in water all the time, the other one is out withered by the wind. But the branches and the trunk are made of the same substance as the root. They are the same. And so, for us to come to this and come back to this example I've given of the dirt, and us recognizing the not so dirtiness of dirt and all the vitamins and all the things that it brings to us, and again coming to the recognition of the dirt in our own experience, where we may have labeled something as dirty, or something that is not as important as we think it is. Generally everything that is not of the original nature, and everything synthetic is still made from nature, but it is so manipulated. So when we return to nature, we return to the essence of who we are, and we are filled with the essence of ourselves. We are filled in bliss. So it continues to slow us down and continues to give us the gift of just being in our experience without needing to do so much and create so much. And if all beings were to live this in this moment, all the problems on the planet would be dissolved instantaneously. All these issues we're seeing of racism and cancers and depression and suicides and famine and poverty, all of these things would be dissolved in an instant. And so for those that are resting here and those that can trust in these words and hear the message of any teacher who can provide any sort of pointer that skims along the truth of the way, because there will be no true teaching of the way. It will only be words that can point to it and dance around it. But as we come into the direct knowing and experience of this ourselves, and listening truly from the heart to those who we feel have embodied this, then we can start to taste this fruit as well. And we can realize the power and potential of what all great teachers have been speaking about for aeons. And now being more and more readily available by all to be accessed directly for those who are ready and willing and ripe and truly desiring for their life to be completely dismantled. Because in essence, this is the dirt of awakening. The entirety of one's life will be dismantled. Everything that one has thought themselves to be will be completely pulled away, at least for a time, so that they can see the fears underlying that. And it's not always drastic, but sometimes it may be. But as there can be a realization of this, this is where the freedom is sourced. And this freedom then brings a certain clarity that truly nothing matters. So then we tend to the needs of the loved ones, the needs of ourselves, the needs of the moment, whatever is coming up, whatever is important. And this is where the human design in essence expresses itself in its fullest, because there's nothing to be done. You're already you're already your design. This is what's so funny when I read people's charts, This is already who we are. So the living of that is already what's occurring. It's always what's been happening. It's just that we've potentially manipulated it or tried to make it not happen in certain ways. So there has to be a taking of responsibility for that. This is the only way true awakening occurs, is a taking of responsibility for where has led themselves astray. And the beauty is that the mother is always holding. The universal womb is always holding each of us in its arms. And we are all made of the same fabric that makes up the womb. So in this sense, we're always held, no matter the potential mistakes or failures or all the things we think we've done wrong, or all of that. And the beauty of our experience is that we will always be pointed back. I'm writing a piece on shame, because shame is like a hot topic. You see the term shaming everywhere these days, and it's very valid, because of course there's a lot of shaming going around, but we have to inquire, what is shaming? If we come back to the essence and energy of shame at the source, shame is simply our guidepost of what is righteous and what is not righteous. For us to feel shame from an action we've committed, this is a beautiful gift. It's to guide us back on the path. Of course, if we have experienced trauma of being shamed for things that was maybe potentially unnecessary, or what we thought was unnecessary, or what we thought someone did not understand about our actions, and then ultimately projected their own energy of unresolved shame upon us, because this is ultimately what happens. When we are healing energy or emotion, we're not removing it from ourselves. It's like we're not removing shame from ourselves. We are transmuting it back to its original source. But it's always, in essence, a part of the human experience. It's just that as we purify the principles of our being, we will just not experience it, because we will not have to. We have come to peace with our own shame, our own darkness, so then naturally there's an alignment of the actions, the words, the thoughts, and everything we commit and bring into reality, so that naturally shame does not arise, because we're acting and thinking and feeling and speaking in a righteous way. So to make peace with shame is to feel all of that. And as we purify that, we purify it from our hologram. So we are not faced with situations of being shamed. Because many times the shaming we experience from some other is a delayed response of an internal shame. And there's not really no internal, external, but it's a shame, an unresolved energy of shame that has not been felt. And now it's being projected and reflected back to you in an external person that has their own energy of the same thing that needs to be healed, and this is how you're coming together. And it's unfortunate. It is not a fun experience. but it is the reality of holographic creation, meaning we are a fractal. Everything in our experience is a mirror of ourselves. We are energetic creators. So yes, we are co-creating among other beings, but the co-creation is a product of vibratory alignment, meaning whatever we're vibratorily holding in our being, we're naturally going to match other beings that are experiencing this as well. And so we have to be compassionate to each other and recognize that it is not okay for people to shame us. So this is a natural boundary that will arise. But boundaries happen by way of vibratory law. You know, when we find ourselves getting into a lot of effort of having to set boundaries, we have to question, well, what is sourcing this mirrored reflection? You know? It's sourcing this mirrored reflection naturally because there's an energy that's being held. And that energy that's being held is arising to the surface now to be healed. And so the responsibility is always on oneself, because if the responsibility is on oneself, then naturally others are going to take responsibility as well. So if we would like another to treat us differently, we have to be the leaders. Right? And that requires sometimes asking for help and asking for support and drawing physical boundaries and doing all the practical things. We cannot relieve ourselves of the natural actions that we feel called to take. Though we recognize the power of where all truly comes from. You see? And so, you know, that's always a hard pill to swallow. I remember the two hardest pills to swallow tonight were we truly have to do nothing. And the shaming we're seeing in our mirror is the shame we're holding in our body. These are the two hardest pills to swallow. And what happens when I speak to these? Naturally, the attendance of the live cuts in half almost instantaneously. And so we find ourselves constantly in these situations day to day, where we're faced with an emotional situation and we check out. You know, we check out because it's easier to do so. And rightfully, it's not always time. We have to, you know, hit the wall, smack our face on the wall a couple times maybe, before we are willing. But those who are willing naturally will come to the clarity of seeing that they are a co-creator of everything. Co-creation is an interesting term. It's not just us who creates the reality. You know, we co-create among other beings. So there is always two sides to the same coin. But when we have an emotional energy, a response to something, we instantly only see one side of the coin, because the emotional energy is limiting the mind from being able to rest into the energy. You know, the method that I've been teaching for years now, and I've been doing with many of you one-on-one, and I've just released it this month to finally teach to all of you so that you can then teach to others if you like, is the energy of resting attention within the charges of emotion in the body, which brings a resolution to one of the most common forms of suffering, which is cognitive dissonance, where we are holding one belief strongly, but we are simultaneously holding unconsciously generally, the opposing belief, the opposite belief, that are battling against each other and thus resulting in suffering and a lack of ability to manifest whatever it is that's desirable or naturally aligned on one's path. So to move the attention into the charge of the energy of the body, to allow for that energy to reveal the over amount of charge on one idea, one thought, that is blocking the other side, the cognitive dissonant opposing belief, that is the same thing, just one side, as other side of the same coin. The resolution of that energy charge and letting it come to balance, letting it to sit, letting it resolve, this is what brings the perception wide again. And that perception that comes wide again, we see, oh, well, when Corey says to do nothing, the reason why he's saying this, of course, is because my mind is so focused on doing that naturally there's an importance to come back to the essence of non-doing, so that I can see the full picture, that there is never a point in which doing is not happening. It's like, I'll just ask you, anyone who is not in agreement with the essence of non-doing or the power of doing nothing, well, we can just wake up one morning and just say, I'm not doing anything today, just lying on the bed, not doing anything. Well, instantly, you know, maybe some, I don't know, little fly like lands on your nose and you're like, oh, okay, I'm doing nothing. And then all of a sudden you notice your breath and your body's still breathing, and then the sun comes up and you get a bit hot, so you got to pull the blanket down, and you know, you can see what I'm getting at. Doing is always a part of the experience. There's always an engagement within this physical body. But yet we can rest in an essence of non-doing where we're continuously moving back to the truth of ourselves, which is like a tree, endlessly growing, but yet it looks like nothing is happening, and there's no effort to what is happening. So every aspect of a teaching, or any aspect, because everything is a teaching in a certain sense, everything we experience within our day-to-day, whatever charge we have in the body has to be looked at, because the charge is what's fueling the division, right? The division of the two eyes, the division of the two hemispheres of the brain, the division of I'm right, you're wrong, the division of this is the right way, this is the wrong way, this is good, this is bad, is the division in which perpetuates endless suffering. And so when we can truly rest in a place where we recognize nothing matters, this is where everything then matters the most. Because whatever is arising in your natural moment-to-moment experience is what you're giving all of your energy to. Because if nothing matters, then there's no hopes of the future. We're not worried about what's happened in the past. We don't have some vision of who we think we're going to become or some legacy we think we need to fulfill. All of this is as really out the window. These things will naturally arise. Actually, they will arise exponentially more. But not in a way where we're reaching for it, but as a natural, vision of what you know is to come. And this is what gives you safety. This is what gives you that feeling of comfort. So when there's a true recognition of nothing mattering, this is how we can be most engaged in what is affront us, what is right before us, our little puppy, our work, our meal, our loved ones. Whatever it is that's in front of us, we can engage fully. This is the engaged attachment, remember. So the mantra, in a sense, of nothing mattering is not something we need to pay too much attention to. But it's recognizing that when we are experiencing intense suffering, we are generally in some place where we think something matters more than it actually does. We are in some illusion that the outcome of this something is either going to bring us the greatest of heaven or the greatest of hell. And we see this in the perpetuation of some new earth vision or some apocalyptic vision. It's an endless projection of the mind that has to be settled for peace and for love to be realized and to be experienced directly. Because when one knows the truth of this within their heart and can experience it moment to moment, there's already a knowing of the new earth that is to come. There's already a knowing of the apocalypse that some may choose. There's already a knowing of these things. So each can walk that, and that's up to them. This is what I'm saying to all of you. It's up to you what you'd like to choose. Right? All I can mirror back to you is what if we can potentially come back to the place where the choice is almost irrelevant. Right. The choice has already been done. Right? The choice of knowing. Because knowing is not so much a choice like belief is. Belief, we have to constantly be choosing our beliefs. Consciously or subconsciously, constantly, choosing and choosing and choosing, and then needing to reinforce those beliefs. But knowing does not require that. We're not walking around reminding us that we have hands, or we can walk, or the sun rises and falls, or water flows. We don't need to remind ourselves of these things. And all the things that matter in our experience do not need to be reminded of. They'll just happen, and we'll appreciate them, and we'll love them, we'll experience them, we'll embrace them, we'll be blessed by them endlessly. Because we are, endlessly. All of these things are always in our life. No matter how hard we try, the breath will always move through our body each day. The sun will always be seen in some form, unless we're really unfortunate, which some may be, But the elements are always by our sides, and they're most easily accessible, like the rest of nature, like the other relationships that we call our dear friends, the intimate connections that some may not have the privilege to experience as much as before, but we each can in some way, if it's not just like this. So I don't even know what we just talked about, but It was quite a ride. So you can say hello if you're here. Maybe if there's any questions. I did say if there was going to be Q&A because I knew a simple transmission was going to come forward today. Hey, Katie, Kareen. But as I mentioned, it's quite a simple flow over here these days. Hey, Kathleen. Yeah, Josh. What's going on, my friend? It's as simple as can be, and if you're coming in late, just rewatch this as usual. There may be some more coming. I'm not sure, so just hang tight. But hang restful. Tight is not the best term. But yeah, as I mentioned, the title of today said it all because I don't really have a title. I don't know what I was going to say. I don't know what's coming up. I'm silent most of the day. I'm sitting at my desk, just blissed out, looking at the friggin' window. Get up to eat, walk the dog, write a little bit, watch some comedy. It's quite simple. Not all days are like this. I'm a manifestor. I need time to rest, need time to move at times. So it moves differently, and some of us are going to be different. That's why, you can only take what I say with a grain of salt. I'll always look to speak to teachings that can apply to each of us, but it will come through the natural trajectory of your design, your astrology. There's many forms of things we can use. Obviously, I do readings, and that's why I incorporate it because I believe it. I believe that it can. I know that it has validity because I've done so many charts with people, especially people I've known. Some people we've known for years, and it's just so accurate. Let alone in my own experience. But to be yourself is not an easy thing in a time where we've gone through so many years, so many lifetimes, so many aeons of manipulation and control and falsehood and falling off the path. Yet we're always on the path in a certain sense. But this is the time of redemption. It's the time of realignment. It's the time where we are coming collectively back to a place where we all can exist in the truth of being. So it's in a sense, it's always the time, but in the current third-dimensional time we are living in, it is truly remarkable and is unlike anything we have ever experienced ever before on this planet. And we've been an angelic race on this planet for 570 million years, 575 million years. It's a very long time. And there's been creations before that. So, it's endless in every direction, infinite in every direction. We don't even need to get into that too much, although that can surely support us in the knowing of ourselves as we realign our history. And it's like the conspiracy things and all these forms of knowledge. There's nothing excluded, from what can support us on the journey. Because any piece of knowledge, spiritual, not spiritual, this, that, whatever, any piece of knowledge, any experience has the potential to awaken. If we are truly devotionally seeing life through the lens of God and seeking God within all, seeking the source within all, awakening will begin to occur for so many in the most random of experiences that aren't so random, because any moment can awaken, any moment can bring the light of God back to oneself, to see oneself again. So it doesn't mean just because you're meditating all the time, putting all this energy, anything can arise, but naturally we will be guided upon the path to align with the frequency of the teachings and the teachers, or the tools that will represent this essence. And countless tools. Go on my website, ayp.life. There's countless free tools, paid tools, somewhat free tools. Everything is there. So wherever you're at, you can go and access it. And endlessly, so many other places. It's everywhere. But whatever trajectory we're coming down, we just gotta continue to reiterate with ourselves, how is this continuing to bring me into a place of truth? It's not necessarily we're seeking out peace and love everywhere, because if we're just seeking out the light, we're forgetting that we are this light. So we will naturally be brought into the dirt if we know this. We'll be brought into the darkness because we are this light. So we are the flashlight going into the dark room. This is okay. This is beautiful. There's nothing to fear. We light it up. We light that shit up, So this is good. But so it's continuing to remind oneself of that, and the peace and love and blissfulness. This will be a natural revealing within everything. Every moment will reveal this, and more you will be lit up. Right. So, whatever trajectory of knowledge you're heading down, whatever area of study, whatever spiritual tradition, anything, it's all going to be valid. It's all going to be helpful, as long as it's continuing to support alignment with truth. And one will know. And we follow our authority, we follow different elements within the human design, within recognizing the mind that gets too active with things and too overly emotional with things, and etc. This will naturally bring a misalignment of any teaching, where if you think this is the end-all be-all of some new teaching, or this is the absolute antichrist or whatever, again, this is more and more of the same. It's just it's in white clothing now, it's spiritual clothing, So it's continuing to remind oneself that there is nothing spiritual, not spiritual. There's nothing this or that. The essence of spirituality is just aligning with nature. It's aligning with the natural laws of the universe. But everything can be that, because everything is made from the same source. And so as we see things in that light, naturally then what is not aligned with our vibratory existence, it will just fall away like a leaf off a tree. There's nothing to be done. So, it can be this effortless. It does not need to be this grand grind. Calm yourself down. Slow yourself down. Slow is the way. In a time where everything seems like it's speeding up, continue to slow. Because we're having to balance out the energies. We do not need to run like we were like frantically running to some new earth or away from some apocalypse or whatever. Because that's all that's sourced from. Right? There's no rush. I know there was a message here, I think, I don't know if it was a question. You said there's already a knowing of the new earth and the apocalypse. What is it? It's you. It's the essence of self. It's the only thing we know for certain, that there is existence here. There is being. I exist. I am this. I am here. It's like when we're frantic, when we're really up in arms about something, what do we need to do? Take a breath. What is this other than I am here? I am here. I am what this is. Whatever this is, I am this. Dropping all the ideas about it, all the beliefs about it, all of what's just happened, or all about what the mind thinks is going to happen. What is here? What is this? This is where the concepts of heaven and hell merge. New earth, apocalypse, all of that. It all collapses here. It collapses into the truth of knowing that you are the source of all. You are made in the image of God's source. You are made as that. All that is created within your experience comes from this as that. Thus, all that is created is ultimately the creator. They are not two. All that is manifested, the apocalypse, heaven, hell, God, the devil, everything, it is all manifested from the same source. It is all made up of the same source. Because it is all held within the same creation. This is what that is. So, ultimately then, it's a unique experience for each of us. Because it will manifest in our own individual life upon infinity, eternity, through our own walking experience. And this is the engaged attachment, where we recognize we ultimately are the source of all, and yet we are a part of this individuated expression. And as this individuated expression, we have infinite forms of how this is going to express itself. So in each moment, we have then the call to act righteously, if this is what we choose. And how it is that we are looking to create our earth. How it is that we are looking to align with the multidimensional self in which we are, that has access to many other forms of the same earth. Because there are higher dimensional earths and lower dimensional earths. There are specific forms of this earth that already exist, that are already in the heavens, that where we've come from. So before we get caught up in what it's going to look like, or what we should do, or Where is this all going? What are we, we have to come to this and to experience this. And then from the expression of this, well, boy, if we are lit up by our own peace and love and joy here, every action, every word, everything we exist in this reality we're existing in now is rippling. It's affecting everything around us. We are changing everything and everywhere we go. So whatever that creation looks like is really up to us, each of us. There's natural frameworks in which we can come to know by first realigning everything we create back to natural law. Right? That goes for everything. It's like when we go into a shopping mall or something, or a store, and we see like freaking 100 types of different shampoo. It's like we don't need 100 different types of shampoo. This is a manifestation of the egoic mind that looks to manipulate and synthesize and control to create 1,000,000 different types of shampoo for profit and gain and one-upmanship and all these different ways. But in reality, we could use far less. Maybe we could just use water, or some different herbs, lavender, things like this, different oils. Simplifies things, and that goes for every single industry. It goes for every single thing we could possibly come in contact with. The cars we drive, the houses we live in, the phones we use, the clothing we wear. Everything that is created in the material form that we utilize as tools, as things in our day-to-day, as ways of communicating, as ways of creating, as ways of having fun, as ways of interacting. These are all to come back into alignment with nature as close as possible. So if we look at how far we've gone away, we naturally have quite a while to go to come back to this, to really clear out and clean out. But believe me, the earth has that covered, The earth can surely go through its own recycle process if it needs to, in mass quantities of the amount of plastics and all these things everywhere that it wants to reformulate back into itself. It will have no issue with that. It just may come at the cost of many things, many comforts, many lives, potentially. This is, of course, what we're looking at with the coronavirus. The most beautiful metaphor for the fact that coronavirus at the core has come from animals. No matter how many people think it's been manipulated and all that, sure, it likely has, but originally it comes from animals. And because it has so many less animals to feed upon these days, because we've killed so many, well, here's the karma. Human. How about you eat this for lunch now? This is the dark reality of duality, of karma. We pay for what we have committed. And so ultimately, more of this will come. And so the one who knows what here is does not just... The dissolution of heaven and hell is recognizing they're one and the same. For heaven to exist, the hell has to be. Because the hell is the purification. And as just like the emotional energy healing, the method that I keep going back to, as we neutralize an energy, meaning we have accepted it, we've come to a wholeness with it, we've felt it, we've moved into the hell of it, this is ultimately how we purify, we alchemize the lead into gold, and we come back to the knowing, oh, this is actually made of the same fabric that creates the heavens. And now that I've accepted the depth of this darkness, I know what it is that I prefer. And for each, that will be their decision, what it is that they prefer in these times. So, we cannot have one without the other. We rest right in the middle, so that we can navigate our way right through the middle, as all of the dramas of everything is playing themselves out. Whether this happens or that happens, okay. We come back to the knowing of ourselves. We do the work within our own being so that we can be compassionate and we can validate the experience of others without succumbing to it. Just because something is valid does not mean it's true. So to validate something is to hold space, like, pretending the boogeyman is maybe real with the child, to entertain that so that we can slowly come to the recognition that maybe it's not. Question here, so we are going through hell to purify us and bring us to heaven. Well, that's for each of us to determine. That's an individual recognition. Naturally, the awakening process is, of course, to reveal the darkness within oneself, to come to see what is at the surface. Right? What is here now? Each will have to see what that is for them. Because to say we are collectively we're all in the same boat is untrue. We are in the same ocean, we are not in the same boat. And some have prepared their boats far more than others. So for each of you who identify as that, then naturally we have our work to do. And so for those who are experiencing turbulence, those who feel that there's a lot of suffering, a lot of uncertainty, it is just simply to remind yourself and to trust in these words that all is going to be okay. But it is up to you to determine through the choices that you make of how you're going to continue to navigate this experience. How are you going to continue to show up for yourself, for your loved ones? And in a sense, let go of the things that are no longer serving. Let go of the things that are not going to come with you. When we look at a world externally in a system that we can see and say that is not working, there are many things that are already falling away and more things that will continue to fall away. So we have to be mindful within ourselves on a practical three-dimensional level of what about our life is a part of the system that we are heavily attached to that may not come with us. Right? So that can start externally. That could be jobs, that could be places we're living, that could be relationships, that could be ways of being, emotions, attachments to past circumstances, traumas. The path never changes. It's simply now, for some it seems more urgent because things are starting to fall away very quickly. Though for each of you, I would feel like each of you to some degree have ignited this path upon yourself at a certain point, some farther back, whatever amount of time, that this falling away process has already begun. And so over time you come to recognize that this is an inevitable process, a recognition of what's no longer serving and what has to be let go of, so that we can renew ourselves into what truly is for us at this time, which again may also not last for much long. The more we become comfortable with that, the more we are going to continue to feel okay. Right? We put our attention on what is constant. The job, the friendships, the money, the material things, the future, all of that. This is all changing. This is all up to so many different circumstances. So many things that could be changed, can change in a moment. But yet what is unchanging? Your breath. The well-being of your body, everything that makes up this body, the water, the earth, the sun, your loved ones that you feel are very dear to you, or more so, the ways in which you connect, the ways in which you conduct yourself with these loved ones, the principles in which you abide by within yourself, how you move this body, how you focus this mind, how do you feel your emotions? How do you exist in the presence of this moment and of this life and of this being? These are the things in which are constant and the things in which we have absolute control of conducting ourselves in a righteous way with, in an aligned way with. So naturally, when life is changing, we are going to be pushed into the things in which we know are unchanging. Because those are the things we can find our sense of knowing, our sense of clarity, our sense of confidence in whatever outer circumstance is going to unfold, however this world is going to take us, whatever direction we're headed to, we know ultimately we are okay. Because we feel it now, and that's all that matters. So this is where we put our eggs in. We put the eggs in the basket of that in which is long lasting. Things that will stand the test of time. because this is ultimately what we are up against. Time. It is time that is the most fearful thing, because the tick-tock of death is ultimately always coming for one in a physical body. Until, of course, and as, of course, we come to a place where we can move with this physical body, which is potentially a possibility for many in this lifetime. Maybe not. It already is the case for some. But this is, this is another question. So I hope this gives a little bit of clarity here, because I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not here to tell you what your fortune is going to be. I'm not here to say what the new earth is going to look like. I have a clarity in my heart of what it can look like. I'm writing a whole book on what it may be comprised of. I started with some basics here, mainly because, this could be a whole workshop in and of itself. But the pillars of our new earth experience are just coming by what are we creating? Are we creating the hundreds of different shampoos and all of the different cars and all these different homes that are built with all these synthetic materials? Or are we going to realign how we create things from the most basic level, on our individual level, on our family, tribal unit level, in ways that are aligned with nature? And this does not mean we just go live as cavemen again. It means we have the ability technologically to bring abundance, aligned nature, right? Aligned with nature, rather, in every sector. Every sector of our society has the ability to have the highest of technology merged with the highest of principles of nature. We have the ability to do this now. And so the only thing stopping that is our own healing. Because as we heal, we will have no choice but to do this. We will not tolerate living in a world that, like what we were seeing. I was driving home the other night, and I was, it was like 11 p.m. or something, and I was just kind of laughing at the idea that, 11 p.m. I mean, now the stores are kind of closed earlier, but so only the gas stations are open. So 11 p.m. you cannot get a cold pressed juice pretty much anywhere. You have to make it yourself, which is actually a beautiful thing. Should have at home. We should have a juicer do it often. But if we're out, we really do not have the ability to do this, because no gas stations have any cold pressed juice, at least in my area. So I was just laughing at this, how reversed our world is. So these are the things which I'm speaking to, and there's endless amounts. That's why I'm writing as part of my upcoming book that will have frameworks for that, and I'll speak to it another time. But the reality is, what's most important is, first let's come to a place where we're experiencing the ease of ourselves. And once we're there, then let's see what we're asking about, what the new earth is going to look like, or how much we really care. Because, this is step one. We start with step one. Where does the new earth seems to be manifesting itself physically as a new health system? I'm not sure what that means. I guess it's just reflective of what I just said. So that seems aligned. Everything's going to reflect what we are. Every system we create, it's people creating systems, right? So if we have awakened people, then we are going to be making awakened systems. This is what I'm speaking to a lot of the conspiracy folk about, because conspiracy folk, we have to remember that change comes from both top down and bottom up, grassroots level and top down leadership. So change will happen in all ways. So we have to have leaders ultimately in our system currently that have awoken to some level of truth and well-being within themselves, so that they can make potential changes. And we're seeing this on some level in some places. And of course, we also have to do this in a grassroots level. That's why so many spiritual communities and all these things have arisen over the past 20 years, because naturally those are seeing the power and potential of what happens when awakened beings come together to co-create. So we are seeing more and more models come on both levels, because humans exist on all levels. Just because there are certain factions within this earth that are of, we could say, dark aligned intent, this does not mean that everyone within all of these organizations are of darkness. It does not mean they're all a part of some master plan. The reality is, the core of the master plan, if there is any master plan, is the disconnection from source, is the egoic self. So the egoic self manifests as the darkness of many layers of beings in many dimensions, and then in this dimension as, controlling powers, secret societies, and various groups that have existed here for a very long period of time. But the knowing of these beings is that the virus of the ego has already spread far and wide. So to cast the hypnotic spell of furthering agendas is not so difficult. It really isn't. And it shows. It shows everywhere we look. And so within, say, a government, not everyone within the government, of course, is a part of some Illuminati secret society. Within police force, within health system, within every faction that every conspiracy theorist is going to point out, is really every faction of our society. So, of course, if it's every aspect of our society, well, you and I are, in a sense, a part of this. So we are a part of the conspiracy together. So naturally, the question lies, well, is if individuals awaken, this is what creates the ripple effect. And this is what is already apparent all over the world, and it's going to continue. But we cannot lose faith, because the reality is, even those within some of these groups are getting out, or are healing, or doing the work to reprimand what they have been involved in. Some of them unknowingly, generally ones in the lower ranks of these groups, because those are the only ones that really can make it out. The higher ranks, quite difficult. Possible, but quite difficult. So even these beings are healing. So everyone is being gifted the same opportunity for redemption. We have to remember this. Everyone has the opportunity to come to this love. And some may not choose that. And ultimately they will perish with the rest of death that will perish. But it's a reminder to keep in the middle ground. To not get lost in this or that, left or right, this way, that way, this, that, stay grounded in your perception, so that we can actually navigate this in a proper way. Right? I don't understand how we're not supposed to care, because none of it matters anyway. If we don't care, then how do we choose? Well, naturally, in my experience, and in the places where I've been detached, it's like a relationship. If you really, 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 really are attached to the outcome of the relationship, I don't know about you, but that never worked in my experience. And yet, when we are detached from the outcome of a relationship, the reason why the mind has difficulty with this is because the mind has a job when it's attached, when it's overly attached specifically, because there's a natural product of desire in this human body. That's just a natural causation. Of course there's going to be a desire to keep your loved one safe and to hold that. That is a natural need of the physical body. But the essence of love is not attached to outcome. The essence of love is divinely aligned with what is naturally meant to occur. And so free will is more so a product of alignment with a natural trajectory of one's life, which can mutate. It's not just a static thing. It can mutate, but it's going to hold a certain trajectory. So to live the natural alignment of oneself, the only way this is actually possible is if we're detached from the ideas of what we're holding about what this needs to look like. Because how often are we disappointed with life when it does not match the expectations of the way in which we think we are supposed to look, we're supposed to be, we're supposed to manifest, we're supposed to create, life is supposed to be like this or not like that. This is endlessly where suffering is occurring and arising. So to come to a place where we recognize nothing matters is in a sense, I would say, opposite from what the mind believes that to be. Because it's similar to like you're on a nice sunny day with a bunch of friends, outside, I don't know, having some pina colada or something, I don't know, maybe just having cold juice press in nature, just with your friends, laughing, enjoying the time in sun, not worrying about work, not worrying about anything else, just enjoying yourself. This would be a great example of when you're in a place where nothing really matters in that moment. Nothing matters other than the moment of your experience. So in the fullness and the joy and the blissfulness of this experience, naturally, we are in both at the same time. We are existing deeply in the presence of this moment because it's so joyful. Our whole body is erupted within the connections and the sun and the beauty and all of it, whatever the scenario. But yet we're detached from anywhere what this place is going to go, where where the party is headed, where the conversation is going with our good friend, whether we're going to experience more of this joy. None of that is apparent. None of that is present. So how is this any different than our vision of what the new earth is going to be? When would we be in the middle of a party thinking that we need to guide this party in some way, like, I hope this party just keeps being as good as this, It's just silly. It's not something that we even consider, because we are existing in the knowing of what the party is, the party inside our own being, the party within ourselves, the bliss and the joy of what this is. So this is what's being very simply pointed at. If we have not experienced this first, then what are we worrying about the new earth and what other people are doing and what Donald Trump is doing this and that? This is not to be focused on. This is an illusion. This is a false promise. The egoic self forever will promise something over the rainbow. Why? Because it's endlessly running from the hill you just came from. You were promised that the last hill was going to give you the over the rainbow feeling that you thought you were going to get it. But now you're over that hump and now you see another one. You're like, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. So do not be deluded by the fantasies of mind that are presenting some grand picture of what's to come. I'm not saying that there's not natural visions that will arise and align. What I'm saying is, let's focus on step one, which is experience the joy of being, the peace and ease of this. If this is your path, this may not be your path. It may be your path to run out with a pitchfork or something, or to run and expose, dark powers, or to do this and to do that. We each have our path. What I'm presenting naturally is what I ultimately have lived and I'm living, and what some may also choose. And, for those that observe what it is that I've been creating for the past 10 years, naturally there has been very little of not creating within the world. There has been much creation. Some has stuck and some hasn't. But the fulfillment and the contentment comes not from the creations. It comes from the intent by which it's created. And when we are creating with some distorted intent, right, we are not experiencing the truth of love, because unconditional love is an invention, because we have somehow believed love could come with condition. But love has no condition. So unconditional love is in a sense, I don't know what the term is. There's some term for that. It's like you don't even need the term unconditional. It's love. Right? If we've lived with condition, if we've loved with condition, of course we're going to seek unconditional love again, which is valid and fine. But remember that the essence of love does not come with condition. And just like the essence of our true being focuses on the moment, focuses on what's before us. How can we give ourselves, like all of ourselves, to what is before us, to what is right here? And then from that, psychic vision and things of the future and what's to come, that will come to you. But we won't pay too much attention to it, because it will happen in the timing that it's needed, and it will fall away in the timing it's not. We're not attached to ideas and visions. We live the alignment of what this is. So we experience this first, then we see if questions come. This is important. Right? And we can ask endless questions until we find this. Because this is, of course, what is going to support us on that path. But we come to this first and foremost. This is what we choose. The message is simple for those that have tuned in here often. The message is simple, it's always simple, and it's generally a reiteration. maybe today I didn't use the title because I was tired of using titles. Because all the titles point to the same topics anyways. Because it will be the same topics that bring us a long-lasting joy and peace that we're looking for. And if we have those fundamentally rooted within ourselves as a knowing, not as a teaching, but as a knowing, then the rest of our life will take fold as it's meant to. Whatever we're meant to create in the world, whatever part we are to play in the unfolding of time, we will play that. So, yes. If there's any other questions, then I will attend to those. If not, then it is likely going to come to a close at a certain point. Again, if you're coming in, maybe say hello, or rewind and watch this later, because this is a juicy one, as it usually is. It's been a while. I've been really just taking my time to write and explore nature and be with my puppy. As most of you have seen, most of my Instagram has turned into just sharing my dog, Neo. And, many things. I mean, when we come to a simplicity of ourselves, endless things do occur. It's not just some boring existence. It's like I said, when you access your intuitive, I posted this status yesterday, when you access your intuitive abilities, your empathetic abilities, your extrasensory perceptions, your psychic visions, not really even by trying to develop them, but by focusing on truth and coming back to your natural essence, because these are a part of you. These will manifest so naturally and effortlessly, and you will never be bored. You'll be walking around everywhere, talking to trees and seeing things and all kinds of stuff. And it'll be so grounded. It's not like you get lost in it. It'll just be a natural experience. Some of you are just coming to this. Some of you may have been in this for some time. It will happen at different speeds. It will happen at the right speed. Certainly don't try and speed it up any faster than you really need to. I mean, you don't really need to speed it up. Just move at the natural pace. Move at the pace that feels okay. The pace that feels you feel in your body. You feel a natural alignment with. So yeah, if there's no other questions, then I may lock it up there. Melissa, let me know how you're sitting with that. And what else is up with any of you? Talking to trees. How do I not have your Instagram? Yeah, you can go choose. I'm not so active. I've really slowed down on a little bit of social media. I mean, I go in bursts. I'm a manifester in human design, and I'm also just coming on the roof over the past 3 years as a 6'3", which for those that don't know, it's very aloof. You're not going to get me coming out off the roof as much, meaning engaging in the world all the time, but it still happens. I'm a 3, so I'm always engaging. I'm just observing, As I said, I opened today with this common question I get of people asking me how I'm doing or what's going on or what are you up to, what are you creating, all this. And I have little to say these days other than when I sit in these sessions, obviously, because there's just a clear energy that wants to move through. But other than that, I mean, we are nature. We are living this essence. All is God, all is source. And when you can see all is source, then it's hard to differentiate between what is this and what is that. The essence of existence tells you this. It's like if you walk out the door and a child is being harmed, there's no question what you do. You're aligned with nature. So when we're aligned with our truth, not necessarily our truth, the truth, because our truth is a glancing term, it's very personal. When the relationship with Source is extremely intimate and personal, but it is not. It is infinitely the same for all of us. We are to treat each other with love. We are to exist in the light of awareness. So that will, of course, manifest infinitely differently within our unique experience through our happenings and our relationships and our circumstances. But there's a reason why there are aligned laws and rules of all traditions that have spoke the same wisdom across all times. There's nothing new under the sun. So here, I'm just going to attend to this. I love your statement of how can all of me be in this moment? I don't remember the exact words. Okay, very nice. Yeah, I mean, presence is the way to begin, really. To continue to focus upon the present moment is as simple as it can be. But the present moment starts at the essence of being, which can be differentiated and also can be said as the same thing. but the focal point of attention is really just in the fixation of your heart, right in the center of chest of the point, the center point of your chest, where you experience the sense of yourself, the sense of your being. Just focusing upon that is like, in a sense, one of the highest practices. And it's, that's the funny thing of enlightenment or realization. It's right under your nose. It's never been anywhere else. It's right here. It's right where you are. But if the mind is too fixated on external things, objects, thoughts, ideas, all of it, then we're just going to be constantly distracted from the core of where everything, the vantage point in which everything is being seen from, which is that space of being in the heart, that pure space of love, which we have to continue to focus upon. It's an endless practice. Right? So, yes. Hopefully this was clear for many of you. I mean, letting the word sink in is a great thing. You can rewatch this. You can go back. You can watch my previous things on YouTube or anywhere. I'll be writing. I will do some sessions. There will be some workshops coming up. Right now, a lot of my time has been in one-on-one time with some of you, many of you actually here. The human design readings are what a lot of people are really enjoying right now. But the essence of the awareness method I've been speaking to all day today is an energy healing method that I've developed over the past 6 years that now is really ready to be taught on a grander scale, because I've been teaching it to thousands of people over the years. But now it's kind of at a point where you can learn it. I can teach it to really anyone. And it's a very multifaceted practice. And it's a practice that you can then really work with whoever you're with as well. I mean, some of you are healers or teachers or coaches, or some of you just have friends and family that are on the path right now that may be interested in things like this. So having the tools to be able to depart like a ripple effect is really important. I certainly wasn't trying to make a bunch of teachers into some lineage or something, but the essence of this practice is so simple and so refined that it's a beautiful thing to be exploring in these times. So for those interested, you can send me a message. Same with the human design stuff and all of the above. Summertime, a lot of people are detoxing, so I found like the food conversation is always coming up. I just shared actually the full playlist of my 40-day juice fast that I did last year, that you can go watch the full playlist. There's a bunch of videos before, during, and after. It really gives a full picture. I find a lot of people need some individual help with that too, but it's really just about consistency. I mean, everything here is simple. It's simple, simple, simple. It doesn't mean it's easy. And that's where we have to be vigilant. We have to really desire truth above everything else. And that will come in waves. It's not even up to us to decide at times. The momentum of our karma, the momentum of our own falsehood has its energy to it. So the more we intensify our focus, of course, the quicker that can purify. But it will come with both sides. It comes with both, and it meets in the middle. The light and the dark. So I feel I'm going to leave it there. Again, maybe let's share this video. I didn't ask anyone to share today. I usually do, so that was a first. But if you want to share this video, I feel that would be a great way to spread the love. You could say hello in the comments and light up the algorithm. That's all we're doing on Facebook these days, because the algorithm is getting trickier and trickier. But if you share this video, rewatch it, like it, comment, do whatever you need to do, whatever you feel called to do. And yeah, it's a nice session. Nice to check in. I'm not sure when it'll happen again, but for now, blessings on your path and on this beautiful weekend that we've had with this eclipse and everything. It's going to really set the tone over this next little while. But don't get too caught up on dates. Everything is a wave. So just continue to act from the place of what we spoke about today as much as possible. And there's many other teachings here and other teachers that I'm sure you're aligned with that can support you. So deep love. Blessings, and have a wonderful night, evening, morning, whatever you are. We'll speak soon.